This case is a female patient with approximately 5 mm stone in the mid-ureter. So I've got my wires up. I have a safety wire up, and now I have a working wire, a second wire. I'm going to backload the working wire through the scope. And that's what you'll see here is me kind of loading the wire through the tip to come out through the back of the scope. And this will allow me to pass the scope over the wire into the ureter. I never try to drive the scope directly into the ureter. I always go over a wire, just like a regular flexible scope. What you'll see here is I'm now advancing the scope into the ureter, and I'm meeting a little bit of resistance here at the intramural tunnel. So I'm using my offhand to support underneath the urethra to help kind of straighten the bladder a bit. And I'm working in line with the ureter, and I'm moving my wrist at 90-degree angles, right and left. You can see the kind of 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock. And then as I find the correct angle for the tapered tip, the scope will slide up without buckling at the ureter. So it's a touch mechanism. I'm feeling the resistance, and instead of forcing it, I kind of stop and toggle my wrist in and out, or right and left, until I find the orientation that the scope wants to go up the ureter most easily. And I use that offhand as a guide at the urethral meatus to kind of straighten the bladder a bit, kind of put a little bit of upward traction. So I got my scope up to the stone, and I'm connected to irrigation, and you'll be able to see the stone momentarily here. I'm just navigating around the ureter to make sure that I have good visualization where I am. And there you can see our stone right in front of us, kind of on the right side of the ureter. So I've got my laser fiber introduced, and we're going to start to fragment the stone. Again, trying to work in kind of a dusting pattern. So I'm using low energy, high frequency in the ureter, trying to avoid any lasering of the ureteral mucosa if possible. And then the stone's fairly small, so and the composition was not too hard, so I was able to fragment it into a few pieces. And now I'm just going to kind of work on popcorning it in the ureter, just to fragment it extensively, so there's no concern for any residual obstruction from the residual fragments. So it's kind of chasing those around the ureter. I've just advanced a basket, a 1.9 French zero tip basket through the working channel. And I'm looking to basket extract the largest fragment, which we have right there. Got a good grip on it with the basket, and we'll just pull it through the ureter and send that for a stone analysis. Coming out, and it's out. I'll send that stone for fragment analysis. So each of those fragments is probably about 1 millimeter or so in size, very small fragments. Breaking down the scope now, I'm going to replace my stent. I pretty much stent everyone regardless of the procedure, just to avoid the need to avoid any sort of ureteral colic symptoms after the procedure. So that's a pretty standard thing for me to put a stent in.
Richard Wolf, Spirit of Excellence.